Good morning. Welcome back to Venture Daily. On today's show, OpenAI just scored a $200 million deal with the Pentagon to bring cutting-edge AI into U.S. defense, signaling its deepening role in national security.
And at the same time, OpenAI is pushing to rewrite its partnership with Microsoft, risking a high-stakes rupture as it tries to reclaim more control over its future and its profits. I'm Josiah Simons.
I'm Jackson Fordyce. It's Wednesday, June 18th. Let's get you smarter before your first meeting. An AI avatar just outsold a real human in a 6-hour live stream, raking in over $7 million in sales.
That's not just impressive, that's a shot across the bow for the future of retail. Chinese entrepreneur Liu Yonghao put his AI twin on Baidu's e-commerce platform, and it performed better than he did.
13 million people tuned in. The stream featured 2 digital avatars talking, reacting, and selling 133 products with eerily lifelike gestures and back-and-forth conversation.
It beat Liu's own May livestream in just 26 minutes, and the whole thing was powered by Baidu's Ernie model, which auto-generated over 97,000 characters of product descriptions during the broadcast.
China's live commerce sector is already worth nearly $1 trillion, and over 100,000 digital humans are active in it right now. They're slashing costs by 80% and boosting conversions by more than 60%.
So here's the question. When AI avatars can sell more, work longer, and cost less, do real influencers even stand a chance?
Good question.
All right, before we jump into today's headlines, I want to tell you about Public. If you take investing seriously, you need to know about public.com. That's where you can invest in everything: stocks, options, bonds, crypto. You can even earn some of the highest yields in the industry, like the 7% or higher yield you can lock in with a bond account. Public is a FINRA-registered, SIPC-insured platform that takes your investments as seriously as you do. Fund your account in 5 minutes or less at public.com/venture and get up to $10,000 when you transfer your old portfolio. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in the podcast description below. Please check our link in the description, public.com/venture.
Check it out in the description.
We fully endorse the app. It's a great experience, and it really helps support our show.
We love it.
All right, Jackson, tell us our first story today.
Big OpenAI day today. OpenAI just inked a $200 million deal with the U.S. military, its first official defense contract, and a big step into national security. Under the one-year agreement, OpenAI will help prototype advanced AI tools for everything from cyber defense to streamlining how service members get healthcare.
This also launches their new OpenAI for Government division, which includes a secure ChatGPT-like product for federal use. Most of the work will happen in the DC area, and they're teaming up with Anduril to bring frontier AI into real-world national security ops and building on a relationship announced last year.
We've heard Sam Altman talk about how OpenAI is proud to support national defense, and this deal shows that's now a reality.
While the contract is relatively small compared to OpenAI's $10 billion in annual revenue, it positions OpenAI alongside other leading AI companies like Anthropic, Shield AI, and Microsoft as a partner to the U.S. military.
Yeah, I'm excited to hop into the story with Jackson Moses today, but specifically the OpenAI for Government. We were kind of looking at the article to figure out what it's actually going to do and who they're going to work with. And some of the agencies are like the U.S. National Labs, the Air Force Research Laboratory, NASA, NIH, and the Treasury, according to OpenAI. So it's going to be an all-encompassing platform for many, many agencies within the government. And so for a deeper look into the story, I spoke with Jackson Moses.
Happy to be here. Like you, my name's Jackson as well, founder and managing partner of Silent Ventures. We exclusively invest in early stage, being pre-seed and seed defense tech and national security companies.
I asked Jackson, what specific national security applications will OpenAI's models be used for under this $200 million defense contract?
Oh, it's a really good question. To be honest, I don't know. I could speak to what I think they should be used for. Obviously, Anduril is building Lattice, right? A command and control platform. There's a lot of AI for procedural and operational maneuvering and outcomes there. So I don't think this is going to fit in necessarily to anything operational to begin with. There's a lot of hesitation, unlike with our adversaries, let's say in the eastern part of the world, to incorporate AI for decision-making in the kill chain. So what I imagine is you could think of maybe simulation, situational awareness, modeling of different events and outcomes. You could also think of anything bureaucratic and administrative, right? Fortunately, DoD, the Pentagon is using, systems and processes that are decades old, and paper, Excel files, call logs, things like that, tasking, queuing of those tasks. It's all kind of antiquated, right? So however we can modernize basically information flows, right? And decision trees, taxonomies, et cetera, to then enable humans to make more informed decisions quicker is a good thing. And I believe that's probably what OpenAI will work on to augment traditional workflows to begin with. What that grows into remains to be seen, but they are in a partnership with Anduril, and so we'll see how that progresses as well.
So this is the first OpenAI DoD contract, but
Correct.
they're not a stranger to working with the government. We saw the Stargate project announced a couple months back, $500 billion for data centers across America as well as across the world. And so that's kind of been straining OpenAI and Microsoft's relationship as OpenAI relies on Microsoft for compute,
100%.
but if they create all these data centers that allows them to have their own compute infrastructure. So we see they're shifting away from Microsoft. And then here's a picture of that Abilene site. OpenAI Texas Data Center lands $11.6 billion in funding commitments. That was I think the first story we did on Venture Daily
on
as our
return show.
Where
Abilene,
we're on
Texas.
Camera. Right here in Austin, Texas, not far from Abilene.
So back in 2019, Microsoft partnered with OpenAI, investing $1 billion to support both the company's development into artificial intelligence. And OpenAI has been looking for many, many ways to kind of reduce its reliance on Microsoft. But Microsoft has already tens of billions of dollars worth of government contracts with two programs. One's called JEDI, the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure for $10 billion, and the JWCC, which is the Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability, up to $9 billion. And now the government is going directly to OpenAI, which I can imagine will strain the relationship even more as they're skipping Microsoft, going directly to OpenAI for these kind of government contracts. And so I asked Jackson, how does this defense partnership relate to OpenAI's broader AI infrastructure strategy, such as the Stargate supercomputing project that you were mentioning with the Trump administration?
I think there are a lot of promises that have been made around AI, right? And the advent of LLMs and Gen AI and what some of the leading companies are working on. I think what USG contracts entail is one, like a remarkably efficient use of taxpayer dollars, right? The de-risking of human error and the processing of tremendous amounts of data with very little room for interpretation, right? Humans tend to inject even though they're not supposed to, right? And our bureaucratic and forward deployed forces and military servicemen and women are incredible. People tend to inject their biases right into any type of data flow and informational outcome. And so, I think this represents for OpenAI an opportunity to land a very sticky customer, right? If we think about DoD spend in the military budget, it's going to be over $1 trillion now, and it's effectively a proxy for what is the price of sovereignty. I think using this as a land and expand and a wedge for how can we lower the administrative force, kind of like per Trump's mandate and SecDef Hegseth's internal strategy within DoD. How can we cut spending in areas that are unnecessary? Again, unfortunately, some of that is headcount. Where can we replace that or where can we augment that with things like AI and even just software, to be honest, modernized software stacks and allow for, again, better internal workflows, procedures, processes, and ultimately better decision-making from command on down. And so I think this is probably an entry point to prove out that USG has the capability to utilize AI in a way that, Congress, the folks on Capitol Hill, again, and our servicemen are comfortable with, and then we'll see the different vectors they take from there.
So OpenAI announced this partnership in a blog post where they wrote, quote, "This contract will bring OpenAI's industry-leading expertise to help the Defense Department identify and prototype how frontier AI can transform its administrative operations."
Right.
The ones they list here include improving how service members and their families get healthcare, streamlining how they take a look at program and acquisition data, and supporting proactive cyber defense, which makes a lot of sense, right? If any organization needs better admin support and streamlined systems, it's the U.S. government.
It's antiquated, it's outdated, and so
right.
Teaming up with OpenAI seems like a no-brainer for the DoD.
Right.
So I asked Jackson, what types of administrative operations will be improved by AI, and could this be a backdoor for OpenAI to gain deeper integration across federal agencies?
I think certainly. Whether it's the three-letter agencies, right, the intel community, whether it's the broader DoD and our various military branches, I think and I would hope that this is a modernization effort by DoD in tandem with the broader U.S. government to implement modern technologies to effectively a stack that is built on paper, org charts, Excel spreadsheets, and similar technologies, right? Things that really slow us down. So, I mean, the list of internal administrative affairs, actual paperwork and processes that could be greatly advanced and redundancy removed with OpenAI and the models they're building. I mean, it's kind of a laundry list. I don't think we have that much time. I was told 60-second responses, but I think, unfortunately, just think of super antiquated processes, right? think of kind of in some ways really bad ways of doing really important work by virtue of just age old and kind of antiquated thinking or top down leadership. And it's nobody's fault. It's the fault of the system and just, how things orchestrate and operate within it. And now think about then the application of technology to remove, again, a lot of that gross overhead and getting us again to better results quicker. Again, be it within the IC, be it within DoD more broadly, or just be it across government agencies, right? I think that's really important too. We all act as a singular system, albeit it's fragmented for the benefit of the United States. The synergies and efficiencies that we can derive from AI, especially in regards to cost savings and saving the taxpayer more money, that's consequential. That's really important. And empowering our warfighters to have better information, better access to decisions, and better data that they can act on more quickly. That's just something that's long overdue.
Yep, empowering our warfighters.
Yeah.
Thank you to Jackson Moses for being on the show.
All right, Jackson, what we got next?
Going back to the well. OpenAI again. Microsoft and OpenAI are in the middle of tense negotiations that could reshape one of the most powerful alliances in AI. OpenAI is pushing to restructure its business and convert Microsoft's current profit-sharing arrangement into a formal 33% equity stake, but it needs Microsoft's approval to proceed.
One major sticking point is whether Microsoft would retain rights to technology from Windsurf, a startup OpenAI is acquiring, which could overlap with GitHub, already owned by Microsoft. The two companies have long been both partners and competitors, and this friction is bringing those tensions to the surface.
There's also a clause in their 2023 deal that limits Microsoft's access once OpenAI reaches artificial general intelligence, which adds urgency to the talks. And I predicted on this show that AGI will be reached before the end of 2026. So I mentioned, it will get to a first product of what AGI looks like by the end of 2026.
So
not
AGI.
Fully. Yeah.
So yeah, they better hurry up. Talks have dragged on for months, with OpenAI reportedly even considering accusing Microsoft of antitrust violations if a deal can't be reached. Both sides are also building up alternatives, OpenAI diversifying its cloud partners and Microsoft growing its in-house AI bench. Some have talked about Grok potentially joining that bench for Microsoft.
But despite the friction, both companies still express optimism that they'll land on a long-term agreement. And it's important to remember that under the Biden administration, the FTC opened a broad antitrust investigation into Microsoft last year.
Yep.
It also examined Microsoft's investment into OpenAI alongside other big tech investments into AI more than a year ago, but nothing's happened so far. For more on the story, I spoke with Will McKelvey.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Jackson. My name is Will McKelvey, and I'm an investor at a venture capital firm called Lerer-Hippeau. We're a pre-seed and seed firm based in New York City. We've been around for 15 years.
I asked Will, why is OpenAI seeking to restructure, and what does it need from Microsoft to make that happen?
It's kind of funny. This story reminds me a bit about Facebook and Microsoft had a very similar partnership about 18 years ago. And so obviously everyone knows Microsoft and OpenAI made this very, very successful partnership in 2019 with the investment and getting OpenAI access to Azure and really sharing those resources when it really seems like resources are the differentiator here in sort of the big the AGI race. Obviously, OpenAI has scaled, and they don't like having the albatross of Microsoft around their neck. And I think a really interesting the comparison is that in 2007, Facebook cut this deal with Microsoft actually to sell their ad space as Facebook was starting to monetize this really, really powerful engine that they built in the initial early days of social media. And that was a really lucrative partnership for about 6 years, and ultimately Facebook said, this is where all the money is, and we don't want to give up the cut to Microsoft. And I think you're seeing the exact same thing happen with OpenAI. They're realizing how powerful the tool they built is, and I don't think they want Microsoft to have 49% of it anymore. And here's the other thing that's really important, is that unlike some of the other big tech players, Microsoft doesn't actually have an active bet here. So you've got Facebook's got Llama, you've got Google's got Gemini, and Microsoft does not have a standalone bet, so they really don't want to let go of OpenAI anytime soon.
Yeah. So I want to get a little deeper into the actual details. Stick with me now.
Teach us, Josiah.
I'm going to dive in a little. All right, here's the current setup. Microsoft has invested over $13 billion into OpenAI, but it doesn't actually own any equity in the nonprofit parent company.
Yeah.
Instead, Microsoft has a profit-sharing agreement. It gets a large share of OpenAI's profits up to a certain cap before any money flows to OpenAI's nonprofit or others. So it's kind of first up, it gets the money first.
Exactly.
Under the 2023 agreement, Microsoft also gets broad access to OpenAI's tech, including things acquired in the future. So that's where Windsurf comes in. Okay, OpenAI has two different parts. Their nonprofit, That's the original entity founded in 2015, which still controls the company and its mission. Then they've got their limited partnership, a capped profit-for-profit entity created later to raise funding and scale operations. That's what Microsoft has their investment in.
Okay.
So here's Microsoft's stake, 49% in OpenAI LP, the for-profit entity. Based on multiple reports we've heard, that's their stake, 49%.
Yeah, from the information from Semaphore.
Yep. But this doesn't mean Microsoft owns OpenAI really in any real way. They just retain majority control over that LP. OpenAI nonprofit still retains the majority control over the LP. Okay. The 49% confusion is just the economics of the OpenAI LP. The remaining 51% of economics rights go to the nonprofit that OpenAI owns. Okay, what OpenAI wants now? How do they want to change this deal up? They want to restructure so that Microsoft's current profit claim into a formal, turn that profit claim into a formal equity stake, which would turn into 33% ownership of the for-profit subsidiary.
The LP.
Yeah, of the entire business.
Oh, because they want to turn the whole business into
They just
a
want to-
for-profit.
yes.
Combine LP and the nonprofit.
Right, and so they would give them 33% of that venture,
Right.
but they'd say you don't get the profit anymore. So in return, Microsoft
see.
would have to give up the rights to future profit sharing, which would simplify OpenAI's cap table, appeal to more investors,
100%.
as well as this would allow OpenAI to meet promises it's made to new backers about reorganizing itself into a more conventional company, not one tethered to a complex capped profit structure like it has now.
It would definitely help it IPO.
Right. So Microsoft, this would be a huge shift. Microsoft would go from being a preferential creditor to a true part owner, which maybe is something Microsoft would be very interested in. But right now, this is a cash cow for Microsoft.
Why would they?
So why would they want to change? That's kind of the big question is, will Microsoft actually agree to this new structure? Maybe Will can help us answer that question.
Exactly. I asked Will, what's at stake for OpenAI if Microsoft refuses to relinquish its broad access rights to all of OpenAI's technology, including any it gets via acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that they're being so precious about defending Windsurf. And I wonder if that comes as part of the Windsurf deal, because I think that Microsoft having access to Windsurf versus Microsoft having access to Cursor, I don't think there's all that much that's that proprietary in the background. I mean, GitHub Copilot has been awfully slow to get up to speed. I think that their whole angle is that they're going to be the more enterprise-safe platform, but I think that that's also was Windsurf's initial angle, and they realized that this is the right market to go bottoms up. So really, like, if Microsoft wanted GitHub to be able to be on the level of Windsurf, they should change the way they build the product and go to market. I don't think being able to see behind the curtain of Windsurf will actually change Microsoft's problem here.
So it doesn't really move the needle, the Windsurf acquisition for Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I asked Will, what are the implications of OpenAI offering Microsoft a 33% equity stake in exchange for foregoing future profits?
Really, this is just a financial negotiation. You know, Microsoft owns half the company now, and they're just trying to cut them down to size. I think OpenAI would much rather have Microsoft own none of this company, and Microsoft would rather own, I think, 51% and have control over it. So really, I think the implications are they're just trying to find a deal to be done. I mean, really, I think that actually belies the bigger issue that Microsoft is using as a part of this bargaining chip is OpenAI is still functionally a nonprofit. And because of that, its invested profits are capped. Its ability to really IPO is totally hamstrung until they can sort this out. And so I think Microsoft knows that they can sort of hold this guillotine over OpenAI's head to extract the concessions they want. And ultimately, I think Microsoft is not going to want to walk away without anything less than very significant control of some sort. Will it be majority control? No, but I do think that Microsoft is not going to, again, let it go when they have this lack of their own homegrown solution.
So the deal has not been made yet. The tensions are growing, and it's kind of a sad story because Microsoft, OpenAI, they were once best buddies.
Yeah.
Microsoft made a big bet on OpenAI back in 2019. It's really paid off for both companies. 100%. But now OpenAI is well, I'm a big boy now, I don't.
It's like when the senior, notices that freshman. It's like, man, you got potential. Let's hang out. I'll put you under my wing, and they're both going together. And then somehow the freshman gains its popularity as the senior, and the freshman gets invited to all the parties. And the senior's like, dude.
He's like,
am I not invited to these parties? And he was like, dude, we can go to the parties together, but
of course.
I got to do my own thing. Do my own thing. So the senior's upset, and so it is heartbreaking. You hate to see that kind of friendship, lose. And so I asked Will, my final question: do you think we'll see a future where Microsoft and OpenAI are more competitors than collaborators?
It's I think that they have a lot of tensions right now, but I don't see them being competitors simply because Microsoft does not have its own solution. I saw that Azure is launching Grok Access, and that's a way to sort of put more pressure on OpenAI. But ultimately, like Microsoft itself will not be able to directly compete with OpenAI unless this whole partnership were to fall apart and Microsoft were to go cut another deal with a Grok. And maybe that'll happen, though it seems like Elon's got his own plans for Grok and then their compute needs. So I think they're less hamstrung on the resource side than OpenAI was in 2019 and onward. I actually don't think they're really going to compete in that sense. They might compete at the application layer, but as of now, I think that they're just more in a failing marriage than outright rivals.
There you go.
It's heartbreaking. Thank you to Will McKelvey for joining the show today.
All right, Jackson, let's finish with our funding highlight. A 20-year-old dropout of MIT started a weapons company and just raised another $100 million.
That's right. The company's called Mach Industries. They're building next-gen weapon systems. Think jet-powered drones, high-altitude gliders, and orbital surveillance technology.
And their pace is wild. In just a year, Mach's grown from 20 people to 140. They've got a missile contract with the Army and a new 115,000 square foot factory going up in Huntington Beach.
And the gear is no joke. Their UAV Viper takes off vertically, no runway needed. Glide hits targets from the edge of the atmosphere. And Stratus, an in-air satellite carrying sensors, comms, and effects at extreme altitudes.
Yeah, so let's zoom in on that. Here's Viper. VTOL strike aircraft designed to redefine air combat.
Scary.
Here's Glide. This is the best picture I could find. They have this little video that's lights it up for a second, but it says here, Glide is a high altitude glider that delivers munitions across thousands of miles. And then of course there's Stratos. It's an in-air satellite, so it doesn't go out into outer space.
Okay.
And it carries sensors, comms, and effects at extreme altitude. So this can
big hot air balloon.
Yeah, this can be in the stratosphere, that's why it's called Stratos, and still survive, which most satellites cannot.
Sick.
So pretty cool. But founder Ethan Thornton says the goal is clear, long-range, affordable, high-impact systems built for a new era of warfare. AI-powered, unmanned, and fast.
And while the Pentagon is watching, so are competitors, because Mach's not just scaling, they're aiming for dominance. So shout out Mach. Congratulations on the funding.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Absolutely. I mean, that's pretty crazy. 2 years to be raised. They've raised almost 200 million total, I think. 185, I think.
Yeah, 185.
And a recent round of 100 million. The guy just dropped out of MIT. 3 months later, he had his first. A couple months later after that, he raised 85 million, I think.
Yeah.
And now it's been 2 years and they're dropping another 100. So
crazy, dude.
Fast growing, very
Their
cool.
facility in Huntington Beach looks insane too.
Yeah.
The pictures, it's sick.
I think we need to go check out Mach Industries at some point
for
on
the next
Blueprint
episode.
America.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. That's it for Venture Daily. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope we helped you get a little bit smarter today.
And thank you to Content Stack for letting us use your space to film here in Austin, Texas. If you like the show today, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or X, leave us a like, a comment, and a review. Throw us a 5-star rating if you think we earned it. And as always, we'll see you tomorrow morning on Venture Daily.